Shri Suresh Prabhu.
Sir, thank you very much. So today, I'm happy that, I don't know after how many years, but we are discussing today the Science and Technology Ministry's demand for grant, and in the process we get an opportunity to really focus on the issues which concern all of us related to science and technology. So today, all of us read the news with pride that now India is $1 trillion economy. It's difficult to be a trillion, to earn the first trillion, like it is difficult to earn the first million or the first billion. But once you get trillion, probably you can add more trillions faster, hopefully. But for that to happen, we have to make investment in future. The today's situation, if you want to convert into a promise for tomorrow, then we'll have to make enough investment for future, and that will come from investment in science and technology. So United States is the largest economy of the world. We have 1 trillion, they have more than 13 trillion, maybe close to 14 trillion. But US invests huge amounts of money into science and technology, and that's why they are the largest economy of the world. US produces the highest number of Nobel laureates in science and technology. I don't know when did we produce the last one, probably Mr. Raman in 30s. They produce this large number of Nobel laureates not because they are the largest economy, but because they produce so many large number of Nobel laureates, US is the largest economy. And therefore, if you make today the right choice of making investment into science and technology, I am sure we will be the number one in the next few years, and not just because the Goldman Sachs with the BRICS report is saying we are going to be that, but if you make that investment, we will be one. But sir, when I say this, there is a very alarming situation on the ground. The number of PhD that we produce now are far fewer than what the other countries are producing. For example, China now produces 7,000 PhDs, whereas about 10 years ago, they were producing even less than 5% of that. So China is now catching up, making huge investments of money into research and development. But you can't make only research and development investment unless you have manpower, the physical infrastructure, the scientific temper. So the hardware and the software of research and development has to be put in place, which China is doing, and therefore it is not surprising that China is fast emerging as the second largest economy of the world. And therefore the ground reality is very alarming. The PhDs, we are not producing enough. There is no glamour in the minds of people to be the scientist, though we have a president who is a scientist. And that's something which is very surprising, that on one hand we have a president who is a scientist, and on the other hand we have people who are not interested to become the scientists. So if you want to remain in the race, to be a country to be reckoned with, then we'll have to make investment into science and technology, because it's a knowledge economy. Whether it's DRDO, as my friends were saying, or it's agriculture research, as just now Mr. Panda was pointing out, it's all going to be coming only if we have science and technology as our priority. So we really need a pan-India priority image of what we really need to do in science and technology. We should have an all-encompassing vision of what the science technology should really be doing for the next 1 decade or maybe 2 decades. And then probably if that will really clarify as to what all the different scientific institutions we have to really do to make that situation a reality. Sir, if you really look at it, as I was saying, the ground reality, how many patents we have really been able to take, which are like international patents? I know that we try to develop some new molecules. There are pharmaceutical companies who are doing that. But when we go into the basic research, how many of the new patents we have been able to do that is something we really need to see. And we should be alarmed by the fact that several institutions of repute, which really created this modern scientific knowledge base for the country, are fast deteriorating. Banaras Hindu University, I don't know if, of course, and I'm not blaming all this to our minister, who despite not being a scientist, has earned the art of running a science and technology ministry. So therefore, I'm not blaming you for all the things that's happening. But as a country, we are concerned with the fact that educational institutions are deteriorating. You go to Banaras Hindu University, you go to Aligarh Muslim University, you go to IITs. Sir, in IITs now, which are premier institutions, try to visit the hostel of IITs. And you'll be shocked to see that the leakages, there are no beds. So this is a very serious matter. So therefore, the institutions also will have to be created. And sir, there's a paradox. On one hand, India is trying to send a rocket into space. And on the other hand, we have the large number of poor in the country. So science and technology challenge is to make sure that while we go into these frontiers of new technologies, how do we address the common problems that we have? And that's a real challenge. And to do that, we'll have to really make a balance between the basic science, the fundamental science, the pure science, and the applied science. Applied science has to be done primarily by the industry, and the investment into the basic science will have to come from the government. Sir, there are issues which I was just talking about, some of the problems that we're facing. Education is one. So there are other issues, like for example, freedom for educational institutions. So there are many scientific institutions who really suffer because they are not supported enough by the scientists themselves, and there are too much of bureaucratic interference in the running of scientific institutions. So this is something which we'll have to really seriously think about. How can we offer a freedom for scientists to do what they really feel like, and in the process create something which they really desire to do that. Sir, in India, in R&D, we more focus on D, that is development, than R, that is research. We develop more on T, that is technology, than S, that is science. And therefore, how do you actually do that is something very interesting. So the annual report of the CSIR, the Department of Scientific and Industrial Research, comes out with very interesting statistics. So there are 230 centers in India with 65,000 people working there, of which only there are 3,500 PhDs and 21,000 postgraduates, and others are other staff. So I think we really need to relook at some of these issues in a very comprehensive manner. So look at some of the programs launched by this government. Rural Employment Program. There are close to 250 million people living below poverty line. So we launched an employment guarantee program. This program offers a guaranteed employment for 100 days. And what type of employment they do? In many districts of the country, the laborers are trying to break the stone, the punishment which is normally reserved as rigorous imprisonment when you are lodged in the jail. So that is what they keep doing it. So this is a challenge. Can we not provide rural employment to the people using locally available natural resources and using local science and technology and offer them different type of jobs? Why should be they doing jobs which are really speaking not really creating any productive employment? So this is something which is rather than menial jobs, knowledge oriented jobs. So the second thing which many of my friends talked about but I am concerned is an issue of climate change. So climate change is a part of global change. So therefore there have always been changes taking place. But now the last fourth intergovernmental panel of climate change report, which was presented in Paris with my distinguished friend and my successor colleague, Mr. Raja Knows, is now talking about climate change which is influenced by human action. And even if we stop emission tomorrow, which is impossible, but even if we stop it theoretically, even then the warming is going to take place for another 100 years and we are going to be affected very adversely. So I would urge my friend, the Minister of Science and Technology, to find out how the climate change is going to impact India, and in that how it will affect each of the subsectors like water, agriculture, public health and others. If we have a report like this, which will be really helpful, but my request is, I know there is a Science Global Change Center of which India is a part. I think your National Physical Laboratory is trying to do in that, but I think there is a need to have a focused, dedicated center to do research on impact of climate change on various facets of it. And in that, my request to the minister would be to develop technologies for adaptation. Because the whole world, when you talk about climate change, are only focusing on mitigation. But developing country like India, we are concerned about adaptation because we have the climate change is a reality. The only way we can react to it is by adapting to it. And therefore, how do we adapt to it? This type of technology we need to develop. And I would urge, not just for India, but as a leader of the developing countries, we should try to do some research on adaptation. So, other request would be to look at circular economy. Sir, we are producing huge waste every day. Now, the industries are producing waste, the human lifestyles are producing waste. How can we have a circular economy wherein whatever is produced can be used in a circular manner so that nothing really goes out of the loop? We can really close all the loops. This is a challenge to us. This is the challenge which can really herald a new industrial revolution. There is a book, very interesting book, which is called Cradle to Cradle. Not cradle to grave, but cradle to cradle. Whatever is generated, whatever is born, can be again regenerated, and therefore nothing really goes to the grave. Everything goes from cradle to cradle. So I think this is something like this. Can it be done? We really need to look at. So other concern is water. I was looking at demand for grant. The ministry has, somehow knowing the minds of the finance ministry probably, with great boldness has asked for 5 crores. I think water is a priority in which we really need a huge research investment. And the investment should come for desalination using the energy which is not fossil fuel based energy but renewable energy. This is something which we really like to do, and also to improve the quality of water, because the quality of water is something which is really speaking a big challenge to us. Availability is a challenge, but bigger challenge is quality, because 2/3 of the diseases in India are directly attributable to the water quality, as you know, as a former water resource minister. So I think this is something which really I think in water we really need to do. And the other very important concern which I have is on energy. So renewable energy is something which is now a really greater need of the country. We are going to import more than 80% of our energy requirement from imports, and that too from fossil fuel. We have 300 days of sunshine, so that means solar energy is possible. 1.1 billion people, means there is so much of solid waste which is generated every day that can be reused. We have other possibilities including wind and others which are working, but we really need to reduce the cost. So renewable energy is something which is really required, and I urge the minister to have a dedicated mission mode only for renewable energy. Sir, I was looking at the Renewable Energy Ministry's annual report. I don't think they are making any investment into research and development. I remember when I was the Minister for Power, I had set up a group for R&D in power, only for research and development in power. That was probably for the first time. But I would request the Minister, as knowing your concern as well, that we should try to work on that. Another issue is weather forecasting. Sir, I think we are seeing that every time there is a weather, in fact the weather, probably when the weather forecasting comes in, if there is a sunshine forecast, people try to take the umbrella out because they know there's going to rain, and it's the other way around. So I think we really need to have a very reliable weather forecasting system in place, and for that we really need to work on that. And bamboo is one of your ideas. Again, sir, I recall as a former environment minister, I had taken the issue to the cabinet and became member of INBAR, an institution based in Beijing. So bamboo has a huge potential in India. Northeast of India produces as much bamboo or as much area under coverage of bamboo as much as China, but we don't do any value-added products to that. If we can do that, it will save deforestation, it will create huge employment, and it will also add to the GDP of that part of the country like Northeast. And therefore we really need to work on that. So I know there is a very interesting fund called National Innovation Fund. Professor Anil Gupta from Indian Institute of Management Bank in Ahmedabad actually started this idea. Sir, we really need a huge support from the ministry for that, because this is something which is trying to find out, going into the rural areas, what are the new ideas that are coming up, and they try to serve as the incubators for that idea, and then try to commercialize that idea. So therefore this is something which is a great potential, and I would request Minister Kapil Sibal to really work on it in a significant way. So I don't know whether the change of rules of business means the oceans are no longer part of the ministry, there are. So, sir, that is something. Sir, the most of the biological life in the world is in the oceans. And oceans are there, and therefore the mainland can survive. But now, the oceans cannot carry anymore the weight of what we are doing on the mainland. And therefore, sir, we really need a huge research in oceans. And oceans are really speaking, we really don't know. We are trying to go into the space, but we are not going to go enough into the oceans. We really have not explored the oceans as we should be, and therefore I think that's something. Though NIO, National Institute of Oceanography, based in Goa, is doing some research, but I think we really need to work on that. Sir, I welcome a new initiative, the Institute for Transnational Research, which is going to look at personalized medicines. So this is a very good idea. I think genomics is something which also we need to encourage, because the genomics would mean that we'll be able to do work on predictive medicines. So today we give preventive medicines, we give curative medicine, but genomics would mean we'll be able to provide the predictive medicine. And this is something which I think will be very useful, and therefore I really welcome it. Sir, my last, I'm concluding, sir. Thank you for your indulgence. Sir, we really need a research triangle in which industry, educational institutions, and the government can work together. So there are so many people who are talking about industry not doing enough. And so that's a point which all of us will share, that industry must invest much more amount of money of the top line into research and development to boost their bottom line for future. If they don't invest enough today, they will not have profits tomorrow. But unfortunately, the enlightened leadership in the industry is missing. For that, the government will have to take leadership and make sure that we develop this research triangle. Education institution can do basic, fundamental, pure research, whereas the industry can pick up from there and can do applied research, which will be a good combination. The resources can come from the industry to education institutions, and government can actually make this happen. I would urge Minister to at least come out with 10 different research triangles in different parts of the country, like what we have in North Carolina. Something like this we should try to do in India in a very significant way. And for that, you must ask the industry to make disclosure into the financial statement, like they do under the Indian Companies Act 1956, on how much of the money they have put into basic research and development. I think we should try to do that and encourage the competition among the industry. We have competition for CSR, corporate social responsibility. Why there should not be a competition among the industry to make investment in research and development? And I think that is something which should really try to do that. And sir, my last point, I really wind up here, is the issue related to how the government, when they make investment, how can they recover it? So when I was in Germany recently, I came across some very interesting ideas. So Germans is like the third largest economy of the world, and probably in science and technology are comparable with Japan and US. So they make investments into some of the issues of common concern in which there is no immediate profitability. Because with no profit, industry will not come in. And then they have a system whereby they allow the private companies to come and pick it up from there and try to recover the investment the government has made. I think we really need to develop such models whereby industry will be able to do something more, and the government will also be able to, because government is putting public funding. And I'm sure Mr. Kapil Sibal, looking at the way you are trying to work on it, will be able to make this happen. I wish you all the best, but hope that country as a whole, we will not just take science and technology as one of the ministries, and normally we don't give a priority. So top 4 ministries, the Home Ministry, the Finance Ministry, the Defense Ministry and the External Affairs Ministry always are in the limelight, forgetting the important ministry like Environment and Forest and Science and Technology, and you are sitting behind one another. I hope you will sit behind Environment and Forest, and he doesn't have to be following you all the time. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.